It was the year 1925, and as the British home islands erupted in revolution, the empire that they had held together collapsed, with the spoils going to whoever was in the right place at the right time, and of course had the guns to back that up. By far, both the crown jewel and the biggest mess created by the British Empire was the Raj, the authority that held together India under imperial rule through collaboration with local elites, economic and industrial advancement, and simple terrorist tactics. The predictable result was that, in the power vacuum of the collapse, many factions emerged. As an obvious candidate for national leadership was the Indian National Congress, the primary anti-colonial nationalist organization in the country, headed by Lala Rajpat Rai and Gandhi. But the princely forces, both those that aspired to independent rule and those loyal to the exiled British royals, carved out their domains as well. What follows was a bitter civil war. In the struggle, the Congress was supported by the trade unionist, socialist, and communist forces and allied itself with the growing Internationale. They initially managed to establish a People's Republic in Bengal, and following bitter fighting, consolidated control over the north and the east of India, renaming itself the Indian Commune, or Bharatiya Commune, to show its unification aspirations. They initially drew to a stalemate with the Civil War, with an uneasy truce ending the fighting. However, the ambition still remains the same for the International Congress: reunify India and uplift it to the modernity of socialism. However, within the International Congress, who now controls the country through a rather decentralized network of committees, councils, and commissariats, factions vie for influence. The main ones are the Agrarians, the Maximists, and the moderates in between. The Agrarians are the majority faction within the Indian National Congress. They argue that India's soul lies in its fields and villages, and thus name themselves Agrarians. Though they have fought in the Civil War, their leader Mohandas Gandhi stresses the need for a peaceful reunification of the country, noting that warfare is not only immoral, but also how much of India's modern struggle for independence derives from the opposition to the British use of India in its wars. In the horrors of the Weltkrieg, the brutality of the Civil War, they have an easy argument to oppose this military expansionism and a violent path to unification, leading to accusations of them being weak or traitors by other sides, either soft on imperialism or complicit with it. However, that they maintain that this is just slander and that their position is simply a defensive one and a moral one. When it comes to the economy, they are in favor of the development of agriculture, but they are opposed to forceful confiscation of the remaining landed property. Once the countryside is more developed, they say, the communes can be expanded organically without the use of force. However, despite this, they do enjoy great support in the countryside thanks to their policies in favor of rural welfare and uplifting the peasant masses out of poverty. The Maximists, on the other hand, take a hard line towards the issues of reunification and social transformation. In their mind, the workers of India must break the chains and not argue with the chain holders. They are led by major military figures from the Civil War, such as Subhash Chandra Bose, and have strong support within the military and the capital, Calcutta. As such, they are in favor of centralized rule, and they are greatly influenced by the British Maximists and the totalist ideology, which calls for direct rule and total state control over society to crush the enemies of the revolution, under an efficient and militarized terror. Their stance towards the reactionary princes, the imperialist pro-British forces, and the bourgeoisie can be summed up in one word: war. A great clash is coming to them, and the Indian Commune must be ready for total war if it wishes to survive, if necessary completing national unification and the socialist revolution on its own without the help of the Internationale. It will require a greater organization of society's resources within the framework of the state, more nationalizations, and sacrifices on the part of the population, but these are necessary to them. However, it isn't just the common man who needs to make sacrifices. It is in fact the lingering old elites that should sort of bear the burden of the modernization. The remaining factories should be nationalized and integrated within the already existing state factories, and the rural property should be confiscated by force and given to the rural masses, organized in collective farms. By this massive effort, of course planned and executed by the state, then the Indian masses can bring the country out of feudalism and into socialism. Only this way, they can acquire the military strength to defeat the reactionaries and unite the country. The moderates are all those in between. ranging from French-influenced syndicalists to Maximists and Agrarians ideologically, but pragmatist politicians. They're in favor of preserving unity on the Indian National Congress. Their economic policies are based on the need for industrialization. As the commune is still a mostly rural and backward society, they argue that to stand a chance in the coming sort of global fight for hegemony, India must develop a modern industry with syndicalist methods, of course taking the proven model of trade union-run industries and applying it to a greater scale. They're also in favor of greater international cooperation with other socialist countries. For only the developed Britain and France can really help India achieve this industrialization without resorting to extreme measures like the Maximists propose. While they call themselves the moderates, they are not opposed to the use of force to achieve reunification or to complete the country's social transformation. Instead, they argue that force is necessary. But the Maximists are rash and would lead the relatively weak army of the Indian Commune to fight superior foes needlessly. Their position is to use the internal divisions of their enemies and the international situation to help the struggle. The princely federation is backwards and internally unstable, and the remnants of the Dominion of India are dependent on the international fortunes of the declining Entente, and they can be drawn into Entente commitments such as wars abroad. So why strike and face the full wrath of the enemy if the enemy can defeat itself if you wait? The greatest problem the moderates face is that they're caught in a vice, essentially, by the polarized political spectrum. On one side, the Agrarians, and the other side, the Maximists. As such, they're prepared to work with any of the two to maintain stability. The INC's leader, the Indian National Congress, Lala Lajpat Rai, is set to resign in 1947, and the struggle for the position of head of state is now the main focus of the national politics of the Indian Commune, as whoever gets a majority in the Indian National Congress can then reorganize the patchwork collections of organizations of the Commune at their leisure, stack the cabinets their own way, and all of that. The militant and polarized nature of the state, however, makes the event of a total victory by either the Agrarians or the Maximists a dangerous prospect. Should one of the factions try to purge the other, the possibility of a coup or a civil war looms on the horizon. So only once the internal infighting has been resolved can the Commune truly look outward. As the only socialist entity in Asia, its leaders think that it has a historical mission, and so they're very, very committed. The historical mission is to bring the light of the revolution to millions of oppressed workers in Asia from Persia to China. It already has contacts and cells in neighboring Nepal and Burma and can instigate revolts in Indochina against the burdened German colonial government. So what do I think of the Bharatiya Commune's politics and overall the way the country plays? I think the focus tree is interesting in that it gives you quite a few options for unification of India. That's what I like the most about it, especially once you get the unification of India. You really have to spend a lot of time actually integrating these areas that perhaps shouldn't be just very, very easy to grab over, because you really truly have been rolling over this part of India, the northeast, and the rest is very, very diverse from what you have. It's not used to your style of government, that being a sort of federation of communes. And so overall, it makes sense that the whole actual uniting India and governing it is such a big part, and that's good. I'm not really that much of a fan of the military stuff. It's just kind of generic, but it works. And the foreign policy stuff is not that interesting. I like, though, that you seek aid from Britain and France. You have the Anglo-Indian Trade Agreement showing that despite the revolution and all of that, you still have ties to England. And then I really like how you can make a Indo-Chinese revolution. That is pretty fun. The industrial stuff is relatively fine. I like that at least the question of the elites is brought up, because, of course, the revolution technically happened only like 10 years ago for the Bharatiya Commune, so you still have sort of a semi-feudal system in the countryside and a semi-capitalist system in the cities. So the question of how to deal with the elites is very, very much important, and you get some events for that, and that's cool. Of course, the star of the show is the sort of political infighting within the Indian National Congress. As far as I understand, and I may be wrong, essentially all the politics of the Bharatiya Commune are based within the Indian National Congress, and then within there are three factions, and those three factions can then kind of take over the INC depending on the outcome of elections and all of that. So, of course, you have the Maximists and the Agrarians, which are, well, essentially two sides at the opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So you have the Maximists that are fully into sort of forceful reunification, and you have the pacifist Agrarians. Now, my impression is that both of these sides are very, 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 very militant, because you can see down here, if you go down the focus tree, you at one point get these options, such as begin the purge, rouse the masses, approach the enemy in peace, or create the home guard. These, once you complete them, essentially give a... This is, by the way, of course, if you have selected in the election events the entirety, you know, on one side or the other, right? So if you have selected either the Maximists or the Agrarians, that being the way you get them elected, like you have three options, and if you pick more Agrarian than anything else, you get Agrarians elected. If you pick more Maximist than anything else, you get Maximists elected, and if you get more moderates, you get moderates elected. And if you, I believe if you have a stalemate, you can have either the Maximists or the moderates representing that they are not the moderates, the Agrarians, representing that they get the moderates in a coalition with them. So when you go ahead and pick these four at this line, you essentially activate a chance for a civil war to erupt. And it's got a mean time to happen. I don't remember exactly how long it is, but essentially from the point in which you pick these four, you could be in a civil war at any moment. And the ways you deal with the civil war are two. You can either try to assassinate the leader of the other side. I'm not sure if you can do that with the Agrarians, but you can do that with the Maximists. You can try to assassinate Gandhi, and if you succeed, well, Gandhi is gone and you don't have a civil war. If you don't succeed, you have a civil war. The other option is just, let's have a civil war. And a civil war is relatively hard to win. It's usually a 50-50 split on which units side with whom. And in the end, the Bharatiya Commune gets essentially cut down by half. And it's pretty bad because in India, these factions are all relatively activist in trying to reunify the country. So if you're essentially embroiled in a civil war, the Dominion of India is likely to just justify on you and take you down. So you need to be very careful with that. And yeah, it's actually pretty scary that these guys are so focused on civil warring with each other. The moderates, probably if you're going to be playing like to win, quote unquote, the moderates would be the best path because they have some very good modifiers. They have, you know, good stuff for industry, infantry equipment, research time. It's just all very good what they get, and they don't have a civil war to deal with. So that's pretty cool. Of course, the two, like, I guess, unique things for the Agrarians and the Maximists. The Agrarians can try to get a reunification, peaceful reunification with the Dominion. The way you do that, actually, Conquering History Games has a video about it. I'll link it down below. But you need to essentially hope that the Dominion of India is social democratic and that a few events go your way. And then you can begin the Lucknow Summit and then reunify. You will have definitely a civil war if you do that. Whereas the Maximists, the unique thing that they can do is they can do the Great Purge. Essentially, the Maximists are basically a little bit like the Soviet Union in that they can purge the officers of the army with their, you know, replacing them with their loyal men. And even if you get this rouse the masses, though, you can have a civil war happen, which is kind of weird. I mean, yeah, of course, if you're purging, then you're gonna have a civil war. But I mean, trying to rouse the masses and, you know, making everyone unified, I don't know, that still makes you have a civil war. Anyway. yeah, in the end, you get this massive, amazing modifier, the new army, the Maximist army, which gives you a lot of bonuses, and it's pretty easy to get because it's just a 70-day completion. It's not like the Great Purge in standard Hearts of Iron 4 that takes quite a bit. That's really my only complaint. Like, this Great Purge, I think, should be a little bit more great. It just takes 140 days altogether. Perhaps it should be like the Hearts of Iron 4 Great Purge, but then again, you're relatively weak to start off with. You only have 19 factories and 29 divisions that aren't even fully equipped. So if you have a Great Purge on top of that, that's basically the same way as the Soviet Union in Hearts of Iron 4, maybe you'd become way too weak. So I can understand why they don't have that. And yeah, this is about it. Of course, you can annex Burma after some events. You can get Indochina to revolt away from Germany. The condition for that is that you're at peace and the French accept to send Ho Chi Minh your way. And then you can take this revolution in Indochina, and usually it succeeds from my sort of point of view. Usually the Germans try to suppress it and they fail, and then the peace treaty essentially releases the Indochinese Union, and then they can be called into your faction or something like that. As you can see, they have the Indochinese Union cores all the way over there. And yes, it is a union of Laos, parts of Cambodia, because the rest is part of Siam, and Vietnam. Although there are Vietnam, Laotian, and Cambodian cores all the way over there, but hey. And once you've dealt with all of your internal stuff, you've ended the national debate. That removes your divided government modifier, and then you can go ahead and take the final showdown, which allows you to have essentially war goals and revolts against the Princely Federation and the Dominion of India. And that's about it. After that, you can take this foreign policy line over here in the call the meeting of the INC in the place of the Red Raj. Hold on, I forgot how you ignore those requirements, the focus requirements. So I would show you, but essentially, if it's the same as Darkest Hour, you get the option of either going at it alone in the world, forming your own faction, or joining the Internationale. Essentially, forming your own faction would be, well, usually with Indochina or something like that, and you know, getting the Internationale to help you would be, of course, preferred if they're winning, but sometimes you can get yourself drawn into some pretty bad conflicts, so you have to be careful a little bit about that. And yeah, that's about it. So hope you all enjoyed. Hope it's going to be useful, and well, thanks y'all for watching. I'll see you soon.